What's up? What's up? Today I want to talk to you about freight rates. If you're in the trucking business, if you're in the freight world, one of the things that you're concerned about most is freight rates. And we have definitely had a downturn as it pertains to freight rates. The question is why? Why are rates so low? Back in May 2023, rates were as low as $1.49 per mile. And they haven't gotten a whole lot better since that time. Not a whole lot of improvement has taken place. So why is that? And when will rates start to come back? Well, I think in order to answer that question, we have to first talk about how we got to where we are right now. If you remember, during COVID back in 2020, if my memory serves me correctly, the federal government stepped in and said, you know what, we got to provide a lot of money to companies so that small businesses don't fail in mass. So the trucking industry had $37 billion that small trucking companies and companies within the trucking industry got access to. 37 billion, about 419,000 companies got access to that money. Now, automatically we think if companies are getting access to loans at low interest rates, that's a good thing. But not if you're in the trucking industry, not if you're trying to compete within this space. Because what that allows is for those companies to have a whole lot more runway and endure the downturn. Now, how I look at it is downturns, corrections are a natural part of business, a natural part of life. And if you don't allow for these things to play out, it allows for these companies to last, to keep going, even when they should, if they didn't have the money, fall by the wayside. Because when companies fall by the wayside, whether we know it or not, that's good for business, especially in the trucking industry where supply and demand determines what rates will be. When you have an excessive amount of supply and not enough demand, not enough freight, what happens is freight rates go down. That's where we are right now. Freight rates are down, and there's not a whole lot of improvement taking place because we just have too many trucks, way too many trucks, and not enough demand for those trucks, which gives us these bottom line rates that we have. Now, here's what the federal government wanted to do. They wanted to make sure that companies didn't fail in mass, so in comes what you probably remember as EIDL loans. And that was economic injury disaster loans. I think it was up to $2 million you can get these loans for, and they were at very low interest rates. So these companies that got access to these loans, over 400,000 companies, they had a whole lot more runway to last a lot longer. Now, what does that do for you and I that are trying to compete within this space? Well, it gives us more and more companies to continue to have to compete against, right? It makes it so that shippers have a whole lot more choices when it comes to moving freight. And anytime you have a lot of trucks in our space, that's a problem because it's going to make rates go down. Now, when is it going to come back? When are rates going to start to go back up? Well, you won't see rates start to go back up until the supply and demand balances, until we have less trucks within this space and more demand for those trucks, will you see freight rates go back up. And I would have thought, I must say, that 3-4 years after COVID, we would see a whole lot less trucks in the space. But because there's so much money, over $37 billion that these trucking companies got access to, it gave them a whole lot more time. That's what money or a lot of money gives you, an excessive amount of money in the space gives you as a trucking company more and more time to survive the downturn. Now that hurts the rest of us within the trucking industry because it gives us, again, a whole lot of more companies that we have to compete against. So I don't see this freight rate downturn getting better until we have less trucks in the space. That's just how it goes. That's how supply and demand works. Let us know what you think. When do you think that we are going to get past this low freight rate era and come into a more normalized freight rate environment? Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week. Until the next time, see you at the top, because the bottom is way too crowded.